Welcome back, everybody, to episode 16 of Beyond the Podium. How y'all doing?
You said that wrong.
What did I say wrong?
Huh?
Why do you just say huh? I don't even finish a sentence and you just say huh. I'll be in the middle of a sentence and you just say huh.
I'm trying to give you an opportunity to think about what you're asking.
What?
So that you don't actually have to have an
That's
answer.
what it's like talking to you.
No, it's not.
And then you hear nothing that I say.
Huh?
I can't with you. Welcome back, everybody. We are still here in New York.
There's Cannoli in the background joining us.
Yeah, Cannoli's here too. He's loud and proud. But we're here in New York still, just coming off of the New York State shoot, which I thought went fantastic.
It went swimmingly well.
It went swimmingly well. David set the targets, which kicked my butt, but, you know, I thought they were
Can we tell people about the bet that you made with me?
What bet? I don't know.
For the Friday prelim bet?
What bet?
That you were going to shoot an 80 or above.
Oh, yeah, and I didn't. I shot a 71. Or 2.
Do you know what the furthest target on that course was?
What? Let's not tell everybody. But
about 35 yards.
In my defense, I had to borrow a gun because I don't... See? Stop.
Okay, that was on purpose.
I had to borrow a gun. I was shooting borrowed gun, borrowed ammo. Everything was off, and I still came out in the 70-ish percentage, which I was happy with.
I don't want to hear your excuse.
I was happy with. But the second day, I shot at 82, 81. I shot in 80s the second day.
I thought it was at 84.
No. Then the third day.
83.
Then the third day, I shot at 74.
Mm.
But anyway, really good shoot. Nicely ran. I thought everything went pretty smooth, didn't you?
Well, I mean, I wasn't on the competition aspect of it, so I got to know all the behind-the-scenes stuff going on. And honestly, they did an amazing job.
Yeah. The course was awesome. The terrain at this course at the Rochester Brooks Gun Club is awesome. Let
me just say, like, for a club with pretty much all volunteer staff, I've never had to work so little at a shoot. I mean, really.
Well, let's be honest. Do you work anyway?
What's that?
Nothing.
Huh?
What?
No, but seriously, I mean, everybody pitched in so much. I mean, we were there. You know, I mean, you were picking me up at the gun club at 11 o'clock at night every night.
Yeah, 11:30 at night. I would get done shooting at noon and hang out for a little bit. I bet I spent $300 on make a break, trying to break that 6 target. Yeah. Only broke it twice, but I would shoot make a break a little bit and then come back to the hotel, eat dinner, get ready for bed, and then you would call at like 11:30, be like, "Hey, can you come pick me up?" Yeah. Sure, let me come back out there.
We had a lot of work to do, but that was so cool. Is that everybody there was volunteering their time and doing a lot of work to get involved to the shoot, and it was an awesome shoot to go to. But it was really cool to see how everybody stepped in and volunteered their time and their work. And I'm telling you, it was hard work. I mean, I was worn out, sore, and everybody was so appreciative of the work that people. I would be driving down the road, starting people off to shoot a rotation. People were thanking me for being there. Like, you don't have to thank me. I'm just a guy standing in the box, pointing at people to tell them where to go and what to do. But it was fun, and I really enjoyed it. The other thing I have to say is, everybody that I worked there with was an absolute blast. But there's 4 people that I really want to thank hugely, and that's Doug, Scott, the homes manager, Scott Edict, the guy that was working with us, and Roger, who is basically the mechanic there. Those 4 guys, you know,
they did an outstanding job.
Yeah, they were. I'm not easy to work with when it comes to setting targets because literally Thursday night I was like, all right, guys, see this dead tree? We're going to pull this dead tree out of the woods and put it in the middle of a field so I can throw a rabbit into it on Saturday night. Literally,
there was a station. There, just a dead tree appeared out of nowhere. And I got up to the station and I was like, wow. I mean, I knew the wind was really strong, but knocked over a tree, and why is it dead? Yeah. So got up to the station and he threw a rabbit going down a hill.
Yeah.
Rabbit coming down a hill into a dead tree, and you had about 2 seconds to shoot it.
Yeah. That was actually Scott's idea for that target. He wanted
Paired with a going away rabu hauling out.
Yeah. Scott, on the first day I got there, there were 3 targets that I thought were really cool that he came up with. One was the not to say that he came up with other ones that were not cool. I just didn't. Everything else, I was like, all right, we're doing this, this, and this, and this. And but he's like, all right. When I got there the first day, he goes, I don't care what you do, but you're throwing a rabbit on 5, and that's what became the fur and feather pair. And he goes, you're throwing a rabbit down the hill on 2, and that became the rabbit into the dead tree with the rabu. And then I was stuck on it. I mean, he helped me on a lot of other stuff, but this one that I thought was really cool was this bird on. Do you remember Station 4 on Sunday? The bird that was like driven up into the tree over your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was his idea too, which I
Yeah.
thought was really cool. But yeah, I mean, I want to thank everybody for their time and effort and everything, and I think it's a really cool club. I mean, we even moved stations, we created stations.
Well, and you came up with a never before thrown target.
That's
Why
true.
don't you tell them about that?
The first time ever thrown a 70 millimeter rabbit.
It was insane.
How cool-
Absolutely
how
insane.
cool was it?
It was a rabbit, 70 millimeter rabbit, rolling across the ground. It was like a baby bunny. It was a baby
chipmunk.
bunny.
I heard,
What you did was created a squirrel.
Yeah, I heard people call it a mole.
Yeah.
A chipmunk?
Groundhog.
Well, groundhogs are fat.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
they were running. It was like running across the ground. That's what groundhogs do. And then it
Yeah.
would it just disappeared like a groundhog.
It was cool. There was a lot of cool stuff, and it was a good course. But what were we gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, we had a huge amount of people come up and tell us that they were really enjoying the podcast.
Yeah,
Listeners,
and had people wearing shirts and stuff.
Yeah, people wearing our shirts, people having the notebook to keep track of their shooting in, like with the journal. People saying, talking to us about their favorite episodes and all that. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's listening to us, because it's really cool to be able to do the podcast and then come out and actually meet everybody. I know you knew a lot of people, some people we didn't know, but it's really cool for me to come out here and them know who I am.
Yeah.
And walk out and be like, hey, I listened to episode 2. I love that when you were talking about this. And we sit there and have a full conversation
Yeah.
about one of the episodes we've done. So cool.
It was also really cool to see so many of my students, shooting the targets that I set and be able to like not go to a shoot that they're at, not shooting it, be able to walk, drive around and kind of observe.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank. I think we need to kind of shout out Joel for coming all the way up there from New Orleans to come shoot the New York State shoot. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, he came all the way to shoot your targets.
Yeah, pretty cool.
I don't think you disappointed him either.
Hopefully not.
But we had people come up and say, I was able to apply the things that I've heard and learned from your podcast
Yeah.
into the shooting, and it's helped me drastically.
Yeah.
And that's all we're here to do, is to give some information, give our insight, and talk about some cool topics with shooting and some other stuff too with y'all. So
Yes.
cool. Thanks for listening.
It is, yeah, very cool. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. Thanks for coming up to us. And don't ever feel like you'd be bothering us to come up and say hello. A lot of people, were kind of nervous to come up and say hi because we were busy. But please come up and say hello and ask us any questions that you would have for anything that we talk about on the podcast. I need to again real quickly. Can I congratulate some people that shot well?
Yeah.
Okay, so James Cooper shot really well. Jim Waterman, and then we got to shout out Jack and Doug, because even though they don't realize it, I think they shot really well on these targets. They were really hard.
Yeah.
And then of course Ron Schwartz, who you got to meet
He's
yesterday.
Cool guy.
Yeah. And then a bunch of other people. So anyways, I want to use this podcast to talk about let's talk about competing on a hard course.
Okay.
Okay. What is, I guess, the best example I ever really saw of it in your game, which I have very limited exposure to, was when we went to Finland.
Yeah.
And the targets were just like killing people.
And I mean, it was like a good round if you walked away with a 20. I mean,
what makes them harder in your game?
Backgrounds mainly.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And would it be backgrounds and just like kind of bad sets? I mean, when you go to that World Cup.
No, it can't be bad sets because they all have to be. So they're all set specific angles, specific heights. So there's never a bad set.
But what about how people were complaining about like the center marks and stuff and them not coming out?
So sometimes on the bunkers will have painted marks where they indicate where the target's supposed to come out, and you can't move painted marks, obviously. So those painted marks don't always line up for every scheme. So some of the schemes, the targets will be way off the mark, and if you primarily use that mark to set your hold point up, then you're going to be way off because...
It probably has a lot to do, too, with if the traps in the bunker are left and right-handed,
yes,
right? It probably makes a huge difference.
Huge difference, yeah.
So, not to get sidetracked, but now I'm also curious. Is it supposed to be that, like, the left trap is a right-handed, center doesn't matter, and right trap should be left-handed?
Left-handed machine?
Yeah.
No.
What, are they all supposed to be one?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So...
I mean, you could probably mix them in there.
Because if you think about it...
But yeah, no, I've never seen a bunker that has, like, different left and right-hand machines. I'm sure they're out there, but...
Because if you had a bunker with the left machine throws right, correct?
Yes.
So if the left machine was throwing right and it was right-handed, it'd be closer to the center.
Mm-hmm.
And if the right machine, which throws left, was left-handed, the arm would be closer to the center, so that intersection point of those three targets would be closer.
Yeah, I mean, maybe for like one specific angle, you could get it that way. But for all the angles, you have to think of like from 10 degrees all the way to 45 degrees. Could you get that?
I would bet you could. Yeah. It would be better like that. So, but they're normally all one-handed trap.
Yeah, normally all one.
And what is it mostly? Always a right-handed trap?
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, that's biased to left-handed traps. That's not fair to them.
Left traps matter.
Left-handed traps matter.
Left-handed traps matter.
Are they ever going to have an ambidextrous trap?
I don't know.
What about an amphibious?
That'd be the center trap.
Oh my gosh.
An amphibious one.
Yeah, ambidextrous.
Do you think they are flooded?
It's a joke. There's only one person that's listening to this that's going to know if he's listening. Anyways,
there's only one person that's listening to this that's going to know if he's listening.
Yeah, if there's only one guy that's going to get that joke, I hope he's listening because otherwise I'm going to sound stupid.
Well,
I normally sound stupid.
Yeah, you probably, I mean, for the 800 other people that are listening, you probably sound dumb.
That's okay. Okay, so I want to talk about interject in this as much as you can because I want your perspective when you go to events where people are shooting lower scores. Okay, yeah. So with the courses that I set, and this is I'm going to use a New York State shoot because that's what just happened, and I understand
Fresh
what the birds were. Yeah, and I can explain the perspective behind setting the targets. But I mean, really, this is going to apply to anybody that's ever had this happen. Okay. And I'm going to bring my own perspective into it too. So, the targets were set to be kind of progressively harder, and Friday's prelim was supposed to be pretty close, look easy, shoot maybe between 93 to 94. John Fritz shot an amazing score of a 98, but nobody in the world would have beat him on that course. Saturday was supposed to be about 2 birds harder, so I was thinking like maybe,
96, 95.
Well, no, like 91 to 93. Oh. John again shot 94. Great score. And then Sunday was supposed to be about 4 birds harder. Ended up being probably on average about...
like 10.
Yeah, maybe about 10 birds harder. A little bit of that was because of the wind. If you watch the morning rotation, the guys are pretty even. But
when I shot at 11:30... It was windy.
It was really windy.
Targets were way off than what they were in the morning.
Yeah. Well, nothing you can do about that. But anyways, as competitors, we kind of get accustomed to a specific status quo, right? And not only a status quo of how we're performing, but what the target what the course that we're shooting should be. And when you set a course where, let's say on a normal course that we go to is like easy, 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 hard, easy, 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 hard, and you get the one individual separator stations, which is why they're termed that way, separator stations, that knock the scores down, but you're supposed to run the other ones. And so that kind of gives us a good kind of feeling because we're running a few stations, we get to a hard one, we see that it's perceptively different, we don't shoot well on it, and we're expected to do that. And then we go back and run the next few, feel good about ourselves. Okay, so it's just kind of like roller coaster ride of emotions, right? Well, what happens when you get to shoot a course where there's not a single easy station, but there's also not a single hard station? Maybe one harder station, but when really just every station is set to have one easy and one hard bird. Okay, you don't ever get let up on anything, and so all of a sudden the status quo and the perspective of the experience that you're having is changed. And I can watch as a coach, as a competitor, as a target setter, I can watch people's demeanors change on the course, right? So it goes from where in reality the second day the furthest bird was 45 yards. The fastest bird was a full spring on a medium spring. So really not any fast or far birds, no edgy birds. Not really any hard bird as a single, but you put them together and it's tough. And so you go through the course and you get to your first station and it's a struggle to run the station, so you miss one. So you go to the next station, it's a struggle, so you miss one, and then you miss one, and then you miss one, and then you miss one. Okay, well, let's say your average score is an 85. Okay, and that's because you run 3 stations, miss 3, run 3 stations, miss 3. Okay, well, what if you shoot an 84 and you just miss 1 on every station?
Yeah.
You're 1 off your normal score, but you haven't run any station yet. And so you feel like you're shooting really bad, right? And so all of a sudden the perspective of, holy cow, this is really hard. I'm not shooting good. I can't run a station. I can't complete 6 birds or 8 birds without missing one. Okay, the perspective of how you see birds changes. I had a student today in a lesson who came out to the course and was like, holy crap, these are so much easier than when I shot them. What did you change? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, they're so much different now. And I said, well, what's different? He goes, well, they're way easier. I said, no, they're not. He goes, yeah, they are. I said, I'm the one that set them. They look exactly the same as I set them on Saturday night and how they shot on Sunday. You're not shooting in a tournament right now, so they don't look that hard. So I want to talk about that because I think it's an extremely valuable lesson, because not very often do we get to go to a tournament where we're put in that position instead of the one where we have separator stations and then gimme stations.
All right, so let's back up then. So let's say, let's take this weekend for example, and we're competing. Let's say that scenario happens that you just explained, where, you may miss 1 on a station, then you may miss 2 on a station, then you may miss 1, then you may run 1, then you may miss 1, or let's just say you miss 1 on every station.
Yeah.
You just can't run a station, and you're used to running a couple stations every course. So the perspective of, if you don't look at it in a whole picture, if you miss 1 on every station, that's what, 84?
Yeah.
Because it was 16 bird station course. So that's an 84. And let's take that 84 where you miss 1 on every station, you never run a station, and let's take an 84 where you run 5 stations, but you have some really bad stations too. So
you can even run 10 stations with an 84.
Yeah. So let's say, normally you're used to just running some stations. Like, you expect to run stations in a course, right? There's probably going to be a station you can run. Even though they both equal an 84, it's 2 totally different experiences. Why is that? Why is it so hard for somebody to say, well, if I just miss one on every station, I still have an 84 versus if I were to run 8 stations and have a couple bad stations, it's still an 84. Why does that get your demeanor so down?
I think, so a couple of things. Obviously, there's differences between being score-oriented and performance-oriented or process-oriented. But I think another thing is that when you get a course that gives you easy stations and a hard station, and easy stations and a hard station, there's a perceptive difference between those targets. You get to a stage and it's like, okay, I should run this.
Yeah.
Okay, then you get to a stage and it's like, okay, par for the course is -2 here. These two crazy 80-foot towers quartering away in a true pair. Okay, 4 out of 6 is an okay score. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so when you miss one on a hard station, you say, okay, that's fine. And then you run the easy stations and you feel good about that. When you get to a course that beats you by not letting up, but also not trying to beat you really, then when you miss a bird, it doesn't look that hard. So you think, I shouldn't have missed that.
Yeah.
And then you get to the next stage and then you miss one bird and you think, it doesn't look that hard. I shouldn't have missed that.
Well, you miss one bird and you're like, I just hit 3 of those. Why can't I hit the last one?
Right.
Why can't I hit the first one? Why couldn't I figure that out? It's super easy.
Right. And so what ends up happening is you start to, instead of putting the ownage of the miss on the target or the target setter, meaning like instead of saying, okay, yeah, I got beat because it's a hard bird, you start to say, I'm having a bad day.
I suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like, I can't shoot today.
Yeah.
Or
something's wrong.
Yes.
Something's going on. Not able to set up right.
I shouldn't be missing these.
Yeah.
I can't run stations. I haven't run a station in 4, since I started. Mm-hmm. And that in itself, when we talk about, let's put into perspective going into a Sunday course that plays that way. Okay. And then let's take into perspective the podcast that we talked about, the whole theme of episode 15, okay, which was shooting to win versus shooting not to lose.
Yeah.
You go into Sunday course and you're shooting really well on Saturday and you're going into Sunday and you're like, all right, time for me to finish strong.
Yeah.
You miss one on your first station, you miss one on the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. You're 7 stations in and you're down 7 birds. You're like, whoa. I gotta make sure this doesn't go south.
Or even on 2 stations, you want to start out on, you want to start
run
out
one to start.
running them. Yeah, you want to have a good start to set the tone for the rest of the course.
Right. So all of a sudden, a perspective changes. It's a flip from shooting to win to shooting not to lose, because now it's playing defense because I'm bleeding.
Yeah.
Right. I'm bleeding birds here and there, and I can't stop it, and I got to make sure that I don't do it anymore. And so you start to play careful, and you start to think differently, and you start to be on defense, and birds start to look harder, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa. And you finish a round like that, and it drains your energy. It's hard because there's not a time to relax. But the biggest thing, and this is why I kind of wanted to talk about it, because I went through this exact same thing.
Everybody's been through this.
Well, but for me, like, I shot for 14 years or however long it was before we had the PSCA. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we never had birds that were only set for pros. We never shot a tournament like that before. Now all of a sudden we're going into a match where we have big money. $200,000, $250,000.
Televised.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they say, okay, well, we only got the people that are on the Pro Tour here. We don't have to worry about other people. They expect it to be hard. Let's set a hard course. 120 bird course. You shoot in the 80s out of 120. It's a good score.
Wow.
Okay, that was the first year of the PSCA. So take a 15 station course where you're dropping, 25, 30 targets, mm-hmm. 1 to 2 targets a station, and that's a good score. That's hard.
Yeah.
And I remember first year, like if a 90 would be a winning score. If every once in a while, if someone hit a 101 or something like that, I'd be just like, holy cow, they're 5 birds ahead. And but so you take that. And for me, the first match I went to, I remember being so frustrated with my shooting. Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
I can't run a station, and it's needing to understand the change in putting this in golf terms. What is par? What's par? Because on a normal NSCA course, par for a pro should be a perfect score on its station.
Running in
You
the
miss
station.
one, you're down one. You run it, you're even.
Yeah.
On a course that's set up not to be that way, like the Sunday course at the state shoot, par is -1. Birdie is even. Birdie is running it.
Mm-hmm.
So you run the station, you gain one, you miss one, you're even. And really think about it, 16 station course, the scores went 91, 87, 85, 84, 83.
Yeah.
Okay, so there were 3 scores over par, or 3 scores of the equivalent of under par, right? Everybody else was over par. So,
But how does somebody realize that is what the course is?
It's
if they've never seen it. How did they realize that they're in that mindset, or they're in a course like that, or especially for like newer shooters? I mean, you and I could on my game. It's difficult for me in sporting clays, but I can apply the same things in bunker to sporting, so I don't necessarily go into that mindset. But how does like a newer shooter realize that and then get out of it?
So we would say, like, on average, the scores were maybe anywhere from 5 to 10 birds lower from Saturday to Sunday.
Easy.
Let me read you this, okay? Going to C class, okay? The guy second place in C class, first day shot a 79, okay? Second day, 85. Mm-hmm. 85 on Sunday course. C class shooter had the 3rd highest score of the tournament on Sunday.
Yeah.
In C class.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the difference between, like, that guy has no idea what a hard course is.
Yeah, he was just shooting. He was seeing targets and giving it his best shot.
Right. And the reality of it was the furthest bird was a 45-yard bird.
Yeah.
And so there was 1 bird on that course, 2 birds maybe, that looked hard. It was the crosser on 6 or 7 after that blooper. And then one of the crossers, the second bird on the pair on station 16, right? Everything else was pretty straightforward. So that guy goes up shooting 85. I mean, everything's like, oh, yeah, this is a 25-yard rabbit. This is a, whatever. Has no perspective.
He's seeing them for what they are.
Yeah, because he has no filter for this is easy, this is hard, or maybe else doesn't have enough of a history of understanding what his self-image or status quo is, right? And this is where I want to, you can go through the list. There's a bunch of guys like this in the lower classes, in E class, 65, 65, 55, 57, 60, 55. An E-class shooter, should have gone down 20 birds if a master class shooter goes down 10.
Right.
And so that's a perfect example of being beat mentally, not mechanically. And so I think what's interesting is that, and this brings me into the mental part of what I want to talk about for the course, and that's really self-image. Okay, self-image and ego. And I say ego like cautiously because I don't want people to think I'm talking about ego in a negative way. I just mean ego in the holistic sense, meaning that how you think of yourself, whether it be good or bad, positive or negative, just ego in general. Yeah. Okay, so if we hold an identity of ourselves as a competitor too close to our heart and our mind, when that identity starts to slip or go off, then we're basing our emotions or our identification of our performance off of the past. But especially in this game, you can't do that because no course is ever the same. And if you have an idea of what numbers you normally shoot, it's not going to help you. Because as soon as it's just so interesting to see, how once you kind of shake the conscious mind, the identity of the number that somebody always shoots, and you change that for everybody, how the people who generally are better shooters get influenced more than the people that don't really have an understanding of what they should shoot. They just go shoot.
So you're saying I want to get back to my question, because you're saying with that, the way to recognize that you're in that position is basically, kind of by how you start off. Like if you have this perception that you should be, maybe down 1 in the first 3 or 4 stations because, you should run some, and that's just not happening. That's not the case. That's kind of an indication of like, hey, all right, let's like rethink what position we're actually in here. What's the course here like? What are these targets actually doing? Where's my mental state? What am I expecting out of myself? Where's the value in the shoot, and why am I putting so much pressure on myself to run these stations here? What's causing it?
I think the best way to deal with that, to answer your question, is to not
what?
Deal with it.
What I'm asking is, how does somebody recognize
I know what you
that they're
mean.
in there?
Don't even think about it is my answer. Like another good example is at the Eagle's Nest shoot 2 weeks ago at Dan Bailey's place in the feed task. Okay, I'm not talking about ego. I would consider myself the best feed task shooter in the world. If you ask the top 5 guys in the world, they're all going to say that. But I never have any. I go to a feed task shoot saying, okay, yeah, I'm putting the number up to beat. Okay, so I go and I shoot my first parkour and I shoot a 21. I go to the next parkour and I shoot like a 22. Next parkour 23. Next parkour 21. Okay, those are not numbers that I need to shoot to win a feed test. I need to shoot 24s and 25s only, right? Did I let my first 21 influence me? Dan Bailey came after my first parkour and said, how'd you shoot? I said 21. He goes, holy cow, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean, how am I doing? I just shot awesome. Like, that was an amazing score. So to answer my question, before I can see your mind turn, you're going to cut me off, so I got to get this in.
I'm not going to cut you off.
But to answer your question is, don't bounce what you're doing right now off of how you normally do. Because if you do, it's never going to work. What you have to do is, the biggest key to this whole thing is presence. If you always, on every bird, give that shot 100% and don't let your emotion of how you did on the previous shot or the previous station influence it, or your current round as a one big picture, and say, I'm not shooting good, I need to, man, don't have the defeatist attitude of saying like, man, I'm just getting beat today. I'm bleeding targets. I can't run stations. You say that, it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're going to not run stations if you don't believe that you can.
Right.
So what you have to do is you just have to say, okay, well, one at a time. What's my next bird?
So you become process-oriented.
Process-oriented and extremely present. You have to be present at all times. At the end of the round, when I shot at Dan's place, I shot a 136. And I went up to Dan. I said, Dan, I shot a 136. I have no idea if that's good or bad. I said, I could lose by 6 birds. I could win by 10. I won by 14. So, and I had no idea until the end of I literally, I told my dad, I was like, I don't know. I have no idea if that's good or bad. I don't know, because how can I possibly judge that? I've never shot that course before. So you can never, and the whole time I was enjoying myself and having fun, shooting the worst scores I've shot in 2 years in feed task, so I didn't allow that to influence my round. And you can never be attached to a number. Even though you know what the number is going, like when you're shooting a 21 out of 25, or when you're shooting a 91 out of 100, you know how many you've missed. It's almost impossible not to keep it out of your head. And you don't want to try to force it out of your head if it's in there. But if it's in there, don't worry about what it is in relation to yesterday's score, because yesterday was not today. And the course today is not yesterday's. So you just have to stay present, stay process oriented, stick to your plan, enact what you're trying to plan for each thing, and give every shot 100%, regardless of if you just missed the last 10, because the last guy could have just missed the last 11.
Right, I get that, and I agree with that, because I feel like my best shoots or when I'm shooting good, is when I am process oriented. I'm very self-aware, I'm very present, and I'm very focused on the task at hand. I don't care about the number or the score that follows. And typically, when I'm in that kind of mindset, a good score follows. But what my question, the first question that comes to mind when I listen to you talk is, you can sit here and tell somebody to be self-aware and to be present and to be focused on the process, but how do they get there? How do they get to be comfortable, not focused on a score, not worried about a score, not worried about how they're going to do in their class? How do you get there mentally? I mean, I know the answer to that, but I just want it explained.
What you need to
listeners.
do is, so we have to understand the difference. We have to understand how the conscious mind works. The conscious mind is completely occupied by one thing at a time. It cannot multitask. It can only segment task or compartmentalize thoughts. So, this is really where a pre-shot routine comes into play. And the pre-shot routine is not something just as simple as,
A, B, and C.
Well, yeah, it's not just what happens in between pairs. Okay, the pre-shot routine, going back, listen to the previous, the pre-shot routine series or the mental game series, where we talk about what the pre-shot routine is in episode 3 or 4 or whatever it is. My pre-shot routine, Sporting Clays, goes through my whole round, and I'm always consciously occupying thought. When I walk up to the station, I'm reading the birds, making a plan, having stuff that I'm doing outside the box and inside the box, and all my plan making and research making is all outside the box, and I use that to create a plan to bring inside the box. So, to understand how to be present, what you have to do is understand what you have to do right now, which is research what you need to create your plan, make the plan, read the birds, come up with what you're going to do, how you see the bird, everything that you do based off of your own technique. And then when you go into the box to stay present, you need to be making sure that you're enacting the plan that you made prior to getting in the box. And if you don't have technique that allows you to give you a pre-shot routine or a plan, then you need to work with somebody that can teach you it.
Do you think that there is a learning curve when you're talking about making a plan, stepping in the box, executing the plan? Do you think there's a learning curve there to where, because I know, like, I make a plan when I go to shoot. I know I visualize things, I picture myself, the whole point, what exactly I have to do to execute the plan. But when I actually go to mount the gun, all that kind of goes away and my focus becomes visual. Do you think there's a learning curve there when you tell people to make a plan, that they can almost be too mechanical trying to execute that plan rather than making a plan, trusting it, and then actually being able to execute the plan?
I think that, okay, so I'm going to say something to put it into perspective, and then I'm going to put it in perspective for you. Okay, so the amount of detail in my plan on a Sporting Clays course, like if I were to say, I want you to tell me your plan for this pair, okay, you're not going to come anywhere close to the amount of detail in my plan because you don't have the experience in sporting that I do. Now, if I go to try to shoot a bunker tournament, I don't even know what to think about to do. Yeah. And the same thing for you in sporting.
Right. Yeah.
And so to answer that question, in a way, yes, there is a learning curve to understanding what to plan. But what's inexcusable in my position as a coach to my students is, if you're not making a plan for everything that you know right now, then you're not making a good enough plan. So if the only thing that I know how to do is pick a hold point, pick a break point, pick where my eyes start, and understand, let's say, what my hand speed is going to be. Okay, and I'm not planning those 4 things. I'm only saying, okay, well, I'm going to shoot that one there, and I'm going to shoot that one there. That's 95% of people's plans that play Sporting Clays.
No, that's not what I'm asking. What I'm saying is, like, let's say somebody is equipped to make a good plan. Mm-hmm. They can figure out hold points to speed, how they're going to turn. They can picture the line of the target, whatever it is. They can make a really good plan. Let's say not equivalent, but what you would consider a good plan. Do you think there's a learning curve when that person makes that plan and they step into the box, and when they go to call pull, that they're trying to execute that plan so flawlessly that they're almost too mechanical. They're like, first step is to come down, mount the gun, then swing, like it's a mechanical move because they're trying
too conscious.
Yeah, they're trying to execute that plan, but they're not able to allow themselves to execute the plan because they're being too mechanical, because they're too focused on the plan.
I would say that's not, if you're doing it in the right way, that's not really possible. So like what should happen is that stuff, all of what you're talking about in terms of plan making for taking the shot should all happen prior to being in the box.
Right.
Like the shooter should have rehearsed the plan enough to where now it's autopilot.
Right.
So like when the other people in your squad are shooting, why are you not watching the birds and feeling and testing your plan?
Yeah.
Why are you just standing there talking to somebody? Well, if your answer is, well, because I'm not here to shoot a high score, I'm here to have fun, then that's a great answer. But if your answer is, I'm here to shoot as good as I possibly can, then you're not doing the right thing. So what you need to be doing is, in order to not make the plan too conscious and too mechanical during the pair, it needs to be too mechanical and too conscious prior to being in the box. And so that when you go into the shot, okay, the way that we can work our conscious mind and our conscious process is by, okay, I'll just really lightly summarize how it goes. You walk up to the station. Understand the important variables of your mechanics. What do you need to understand from the bird so that you can make your plan? Okay, so let's say you need the line. Let's say you need X, Y, Z. You need where it comes out, where you see it, the speed, okay, and that information gives you all the stuff you need. Okay, once you have all that stuff, then you can use that information to apply the mechanics. Once you apply the mechanics for that bird, based off of what the target is, now you know what you have to do for the bird. Okay, and you're injecting some subjective stuff, so like where I want to shoot it, where I want to start. Okay, those types of things. When that happens, that gives you a formulated plan for you. Okay, so that's the plan. But now you got to test the plan to see if it works. So do that when you're watching a show pair. Do that while you're watching your friend shoot or your squad mate shoot, or do that while you're watching the other people in the squad ahead of you shoot that pair. Test it out. Enact the move. Move without a gun. Fake the mount. Understand what your eyes are doing. Test all those things. If it works, if you can say, okay, all those things work, I feel like I can be connected. I feel like I can see the bird really well. I feel like everything comes together well. You've probably done it at least 15 times. 10 times at least. Okay, so if that's the case, then 10 times is 2 shooters. That's not that many people. 2 shooters is one guy in the squad that you see, the last shooter for the previous squad in front of you, and then if you're the first guy up, you get 2 more pair. If you're the second guy, you watch the last guy in the squad ahead of you and the guy right in front of you plus 2 pairs. Now you've got about 10 pairs that you've seen.
Okay, well, let's say that's all like best case scenario. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But not everybody can be in that state of mind to where they can just make a plan and trust it and then go do it. Nerves play into effect, pressures play into effect. It's not as simple as creating a plan and then being able to go execute it because you've tested your plan and you think your plan's going to work really good.
Well, obviously, a lot of people don't have the information to create a plan.
But let's say that they do. Let's say that they're an experienced shooter. They've taken lessons. They've been to multiple shooting competitions. They understand, target presentation. They understand all of that. But and I'm saying this because I'm referring it back to, I know bunker, every single target that can be thrown on a bunker better than I would say anybody. I know the game. And when I make a plan, I know that my plan will work flawlessly if I can execute it flawlessly. Mm-hmm. But a lot of things come into play there during the execution process. So whether it be, something that that happened before the round, something that happened during the round, something that I'm thinking about, something like some pressure or nerves. Maybe it's a really big shoot. Maybe somebody's watching. Yeah. So what I'm saying is if a person has the capabilities to make a good plan because they have all the information, they can make the best plan that they know how to make, which would be a good plan. I'm saying they know all the targets, everything. Right. It's not as simple as, for most people, as making a plan and executing it. So what happens when you make a good plan and other things come into play that create a barrier almost from you executing the plan?
Well, to say that you have the ability to make a good plan, you make a good plan and you execute it perfectly every time would mean that every time I shoot 100%. Not possible. Obviously, stuff happens. Okay?
Yeah, but I mean,
so,
you're shooting.
I know what you're saying.
You're shooting 96 to 99, 98 on average.
No, my average is 92% if you look up in the NSC.
Okay, what I'm saying is recently, most of the time, you're going to shoot in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's
almost 10 mistakes every time.
In grade school, that's an A+.
Okay, but that's almost one mistake every station.
Yeah, but a lot of them, I mean, I would say just from watching you, a lot of them are your own fault, whether you're not paying attention.
Yeah, they're almost all.
Some of them are cause of wind, but that we're getting off track here. What I'm saying is when you're standing in your
I know
own
what
way.
You're saying, yeah. So the answer is you're never going to have a round where you don't do that. Okay, but I
know that.
Okay, but what you have to be able to do is you obviously can't. Shooting is a closed loop system. You call pull, and whatever happens. You can't stop in the middle of the pair, obviously. So if you get a thought that happens, or if you have too much pressure and you succumb to it and you don't make a good move and you make a mistake and it causes a miss, you have two options now. You can try to repeat what you just did, or you can stop, reset, go back to the plan, and try to enact the plan again. The best thing to do is just once you have the plan that you've established prior to going into the station, that you've tested enough to know that it's right. Everybody always says, well, if you miss, change something. Okay? I think that that's faulty logic. I think that if you miss and you have a good plan and you know that the plan works, check what you did against the plan because there's something that didn't align.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you find what doesn't align in your post-shot analysis, then the next time, so then you take that and say, okay, let me give you an example. So I go to a pair, I make a great plan, I have everything good. I know if I do that, I will hit it. 100% chance if I do that, I will hit every pair. I go and I shoot my first pair and I miss. What happened? Okay, well, one that I tend to make a lot is on a fast trap bird. I use too much hands because I let the speed of what I see in my eyes allow my hands to react off of emotion. Okay, I see the bird go out fast. I panic. I throw my hands, and the connection's lost, and I miss.
Yeah, you're terrible trap shooter.
Right. So if I do that, then okay. So obviously I didn't plan to do that, but that's what happened because I wasn't able to control it in real time. So. Go back, make the analysis. Okay, what happened? Was it obviously I know my hands did that. Okay, but that's not a deep enough answer. Why did they do that? Okay, why I responded to the emotion. I knew in my plan that I was going to feel that way. I planned to suppress that, and I didn't. So I need to make sure that I do. So now when I rerun my next pre-shot routine before the next pair. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm putting a little bit more focus on that. And so I'm going to say, okay, make sure I get down to the baseline emotion so that when I call upon, I'm ready to go. Now, that's something that like the average shooter, even the average masterclass or the good masterclass shooter probably isn't going to be thinking about. But
it's what they should be thinking about.
Well, if they have that enough experience in that. But that's, if you have a good plan, you go and you make a mistake, then all you got to do is analyze what you just did off of what you planned to do and fix the correction. Make the correction.
The easy answer here is you have to find the why.
Well, yeah.
Every time.
But the question is, how do you find it?
Well, you have to go back. That's why a pre-shot and post-shot routine is so important.
Right.
Every time. Pre-shot routine, which would be the same as making your plan. That's your pre-shot routine. should set you up for success every time. And when you execute that pre-shot routine and you don't get the result that it should create, then you have to go back and say, okay, did I do step 1? Did I do step 2? Did I do step 3? How did I feel in those steps? Where did something go off the track here? You just have to find the why. And you have to be, like we were talking about in the last episode, you have to be self-aware enough to be able to go back through. And even if you don't have the best plan, you can make the plan to the best of your ability. But even if you don't have the best plan, did you execute everything you wanted to execute on your plan? You have to find the why.
Well, yeah. What?
What?
What I miss, why would I not want to try to find the why?
Well, a lot of people get caught up in just the miss, and they don't ever think about the why. They just think I missed.
Well, sometimes they just don't even think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is not think, but what I'm saying is they just get frustrated immediately because they missed, and there's no thought, there's nothing that goes into it of why did they miss. It's just, I should have hit that, I missed, now I'm pissed off. Now I've missed 2 more, now I'm really pissed off. Now let me take that to the next station. That's what I'm saying. That's how you prevent the snowball effect.
Well, I mean, that in itself is having a good control of your emotion. It's emotional maturity.
Yeah.
You know, and that can be low even in adults.
Yeah.
And that can be low in the same person at different times, but high at the same person at other times.
Yeah.
So it's you know, it's what's fun about the game is that no round is ever the same. Sometimes, you know, I mean, when I feel like I'm really good with controlling my emotions, it can be really good. And other times when I seem to go into a match with some level of expectation and you know, desire to perform well, then, you know, the emotions start to come out more if the performance doesn't go that well.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's always this ebb and flow of all these different things that you're trying to control and maintain. But what's so huge is, you know, going back to what we're talking about now is your self-image of yourself. You know, don't let that be too powerful of a thing that controls how you perform.
Yeah.
You know, it has to be there. It has to be positive, but it can't be something that controls, you know, if it's not going how it should. You know, sporting clays is not American trap and skeet. You know, it's not a game that always needs to be a perfect score or the same score. You can't go from place to place and shoot, you know, increasingly better numbers and to think you're performing. You could just be shooting increasingly easier courses.
Do you think that the scores would improve if, one, we didn't keep score at competitions, only like, let's make a scenario here, like only 4 people could keep the scores. Okay, it's just like we're in this little game here. We have all these shooters and there's like 4 game controllers, okay? Like the scorekeepers. Nobody that's shooting the game is capable of keeping up with what they scored. So if they run a station, they don't know it. They're just trying to get everything they can get. Do you think the scores would be higher out of 100 because the score factor is taken out of it?
Well, obviously, yeah.
What if you could create a pre-shot routine that you were able to take the factor of the score completely out? Like, just not even be fazed about it.
Well, that's what a good pre-shot routine does. It keeps you present.
Right.
Well, score can only matter if you're not present. I mean, if you're so present, you know. The thing that's interesting to me, and I don't really know that much about it, though, is, you know, different people have personality traits that allow them to be more or less present. Mm-hmm. People are more future-oriented, past-oriented, present-oriented. So, you know, when presence is so important in the game, but you're someone who's more future-oriented, how do you flip that, you know?
Well, I think
what would you say you are?
I am different. I would say that most of the time I'm pretty goal-oriented, which makes me kind of like future-oriented. Like I kind of always going forward, but I am really good at when a competition happens to be able to just shut all that off. I can pretty much shut off all emotions.
I'm not talking at all about competition. I'm talking about you day to day, future, past, present.
I think I bounce between present and future. I don't really focus too much on past things. I would say I'm pretty good at. I'm mainly present, but goal oriented. So I'm kind of like future too.
Are you giving the answer that you want people to hear, or the people that you think?
Would you disagree with that?
I don't. I'm just asking.
That's my answer.
What gives you that answer? When you say that you're future oriented, do you think that because you're thinking of it, well, the things that I'm excited about, I tend to think about, and those are things that in the future?
Yes, I do that.
Where do your emotions on a daily basis lie, though?
In the present, because I am the type to make goals and like think about the future and think where I want to be, but I know that the present matters, so that's what I tend to focus on during the days. Like, in order to get to those goals, have to stay present. That's what I'm trying to say. I think I'm pretty good at that.
Yeah, I would agree.
I know your answer. You're very present about everything.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah.
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 It's a problem in my whole life, except for one thing.
Except for shooting.
Yeah. It's the only thing I'm good at.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, to sum it all up, have to be self-aware. You have to understand how your mind works to be able to create a good pre-shot routine that allows you to stay present. Because staying present and understanding the why of what happened and being able to stay present and not let what just happened affect what's going to happen or what's going to happen in the future, being able to stay in your bubble there is, I think, the ultimate key.
Yeah. I'm down. Why do you keep looking at me for?
Because you look like you're fixing to say something and then you don't, so I'm just waiting.
No, I'm not saying anything. I'm good to go.
Cool.
I say 2 episodes in a row under 1 hour.
That's pretty good for you.
Yeah. For me.
Yeah.
You're the talker.
No, you're long-winded. David is the worst I've ever seen. He will sit there and have a conversation and then sit in silence for like 30 seconds and just look around and wait for somebody else to pick up another conversation.
Remember that thing about presents we were talking about?
When he knows that he has to be somewhere. The worst.
Okay, well, how about I start changing that right now?
Perfect.
Okay. We're going to go, and this is going to be under 1 hour again. Thank you guys for listening. Check our website for future lesson dates. Stay up to date with the Cypress Creek Lodge. And what else, Kaylee?
As always, please subscribe to us. If you like the podcast, give us a good rating on your favorite podcasting app and follow us on social media. And also, we've gotten a lot of emails about the Live at 5. We're trying to figure out how to make that happen on the road. We just haven't been able to figure that out yet. Our tech guy hasn't been able to figure that out yet.
Our tech guy hasn't had a free minute in the last month.
So if you need to complain about our tech guy, aka David. But no, we're trying to get the Live at 5 back, and just bear with us on that. But other than that, thanks for joining us again. I like doing the podcast.
What?
Delete
All right.
that.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.